And we're live.
Thank you so much for doing this. So, I guess for posterity's sake, I will say I'm Adrian VanKeuren with Speak Up Community News.
Hi, Adrian VanKeuren with Speak Up Community News.
It's a blessing to be here.
I'm Evan with Indubious.
Oh, that's me?
Let's get.
Hey, I'm Skip, also with Indubious.
It's like unnecessarily formal.
Yeah, okay. So let's let go of the formality and just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, what were we saying before? That was cool.
Yeah.
I know, I was going to say we should have had the recorder on already.
Well, that's why I was trying to just get the recorder popping.
Well, Adrian was saying to me that she saw us at Bless the Woods. She saw us at Bless the Woods, right? Mm-hmm. And she was wondering if I remembered, and I was like, of course I remember that show. That show was amazing. And we're talking about your experience with C#.
Which was absolutely incredible and mind-blowing for me.
Was that the first time you heard the song?
That was the first time I'd heard of you all.
Oh.
Yeah. And I will also say, too, that for the last year and a couple of months, I have listened to very little else other than your music and some other, I want to say, medicine music.
Yeah. That's the genre that I'm resonating with mostly.
Yeah.
Medicine music. It's music that is meant for personal transformation.
I mean, like, we're sort of at a really interesting time, as we all know. And, like, during this time, it's not what it seems, and it's a big awakening for a lot of people. And through that, we're going to find that music is going to change drastically on the planet. It's going to be less geared to the Cardi B's and the Taylor Swifts of the world. And this medicine stuff is going to be received and heard by a lot more people. So it's like
already starting.
Yes. Yep.
So do you feel that we're in the midst of kind of, I want to say, cultural or just a spiritual awakening, all of humankind?
Yeah, I think we're going through a global shift. But I think it's not just humanity, but it's also the earth, and it's also all of nature, everything that is on this resonant field we call the physical reality. I think we're going through a shift, and that's why we're seeing the dissonance. You know, a lot of the funky stuff has come to the surface. It's like, you know, when you're doing a detox or a cleanse and you get a rash or you get a headache, it's like, it's part of the cleansing process. And so let's just don't panic. It's all going good.
The good is being forced out of everybody.
Yeah,
so
it's growing pains.
Yeah, the good is being forced out of everybody. It's a process of knowing that you won't be able to take forward the negativity. And so those ones that are holding on to it are trying to hold on to it, trying to hold on to old ways of thinking and patterning. It's being ripped from their hands, and that's why they're fighting so fiercely to retain it, because they don't know anything else. It's scary. But, you know, as we relax into that fear, these people will learn that they can either be good or they can be dead. That's just the way it goes on this planet.
Do you feel that everyone is going to shift regardless of whether they want to or not?
To some degree. I think they're responsible for their own recognition of what that means for them. And so I'll equate it to experiences that some people have with our music, you know. Like we'll watch, some people of a different walk of life. I'm not talking about the people that come to festivals and listen to this type of music. I'm talking about people that might have no exposure to that. They have their initial reaction to it, and something happens inside of them. And what they do with that, they can either squash it back down or they can let it open up. But that opening up is going to be uncomfortable, and they need to allow that uncomfortable to come. And if they don't, so they have a choice.
I think that's before we officially started kind of what we were talking about, how some people, they actually end up turning to drugs so that they can kind of tamp that awakening down, because it's such a bright light inside of them.
Yep. And a lot of children on this earth have come for that reason. They've come specifically for the reason of just being what they are. And so they can accept what they are as light bringers, as truth bringers, as joy bringers. But that can be a heavy load, and so some people don't want to feel it as deeply.
I do, to answer the initial question too, I do believe that as the collective vibration rises, that everyone does inevitably get lifted up a little bit by it.
Yeah.
It becomes like a resonance of the earth. Like I said, you know, the resonance of the earth will just kind of raise, and everyone will be affected by it a little bit.
Can you feel that vibration raising yourselves?
Well, it's hard to say, because if I look at everything through my personal perspective, absolutely yes. but there's many other perspectives. For me, in my world, my perspective is that everything is growing so fast, it's hard to even keep up with it, you know. Everything's just, it's like this advanced awakening, you know, especially given the whole gift of this quarantine, of all this time that people had to spend by themselves to, you know, have time to sit and think, which is a huge thing. And just for me, it has given me the opportunity to really deal with a lot of stuff that I never dealt with, that I never even knew that existed, because I just had so much space in my life.
Yep.
I love that you call it a gift of the quarantine.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is. I mean,
Do
it's
you
all
feel
gifts.
the same?
I totally feel the same. I mean, our view, Evan would agree with me, our view on suffering is that it brings inevitable joy.
Yeah.
And so if you're able to be there, sit with it.
Well, I would clarify that too, because I feel that suffering is the result of the resistance to contrast.
Truth.
So it's not so much the suffering as it is the contrast, and the challenge in our life is really just opportunity. We don't have to suffer. We can choose to see it before we see the blessing. We can choose to see it as a blessing, because we know the blessing is always coming, and the sooner we choose to see it that way, the sooner we will see the blessing. You know, and it becomes a microcosm or it's a macrocosm of just personal experience I've had in my life. And we had the whole quote unquote disease thing, which turned out to be part of our path and part of our blessing and part of our power to help people and change lives, and part of our connection to, you know, spiritual realms from a very young age. And so we've been blessed to just know that it always turns out that way.
If you don't mind going back, I want to say to the health battles. Do you feel that has been, obviously it's been a huge part of your path and your journey. It's something, are you grateful for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very much so.
Hell yeah.
It's amazing. It's like, it's, you know, it's weird because humans were inserted into this timeline, right? And it's like the timeline looks a certain way while you're in it, but ultimately, on a big picture, it looks like beautiful poetry, because it led you right where you needed to be, right to the moment you needed to be at. And so if you can't reflect on it as a blessing, then
You're just not looking at it right.
just not looking at it right.
So would you agree then that a lot of the suffering we go through when we have these different illnesses, whatever the disease that you're dealing with might be, is it because we're resisting those blessings and things that are coming into our life, and that's where a lot of the pain comes from?
I think that's complicated.
Yeah, it's very case by case.
Yeah.
There's different, I believe that behind every physical ailment there is a spiritual, a vibrational reality. But the intricacies of that are very case to case. But I do believe that through those things, people find the greatest tools. You know, a lot of times you go, I have this weird back pain, and it's just because you're not accepting some reality in your life, or there's something you have twisted in your mind, sort of minor stuff like that. And then there's like things like cancer and life-threatening diseases that kill people that come from things like anger and resentment and all sorts of stuff like that. And there are some cases where it doesn't even seem that way, so it's kind of still
I think it's really common in New Age circles nowadays to feel as if anything that is wrong in your or you view as wrong in your particular life is something that you caused, and it's not always the case. Sometimes it's just what is, but it's what you do with it. You know, it's less about feeling those layers of shame and guilt about what you should or shouldn't be, and just accepting who and what you are in that moment and loving yourself right where you're at, because that's it.
That is something that really resonates with me. So thank you for saying that, and especially using those words to do so.
Yep, of course.
So.
You like self-love.
I think everybody should like self-love. So Bless the Woods is a benefit for Lyme disease awareness.
Yeah.
And so I had a 12-ish year battle with chronic Lyme disease. It left me bed-bound and all that fun stuff.
It's crazy stuff, yeah.
And I realized, and especially the more I kind of grow into my spiritual power, that the reason I got chronic Lyme was because I denied that part of myself that saw energy and felt energy and all of that. So,
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if we can allow ourselves to be what we are from the state, how much of this stuff would be sidestepped. And we don't really have the answer to that. We just know that that's the best answer we have, is to do so.
And I do believe that the fixes of these things come in many shapes and sizes and colors and avenues, because I always felt that I was going to beat my disease through the power of my heart and my mind. and which would manifest as a miraculous healing or something like this, but it didn't work out that way. It was all Western medicine for me that saved me. And so it's not to discount the validity of Western medicine, but I think these things go hand in hand, and through that physical healing for me came a spiritual healing. So the dimensions of these things it's complicated. So I don't want anyone to hear that and hear like, oh, it's all emotional, and then resist getting the treatment that they might need. It's a very person case-to-case basis.
For me, it's about what I was trying to say earlier, is awakening within whatever space you're in. Could be a suffering space. You could be suffering from Lyme's, and you could be laying there on a bed and not knowing what's happening. It's important not to beat oneself up about where they're at. It's about feeling the emotions that come with where you're at, loving those emotions, and knowing that better days are there and they're coming. And so the acceptance of what is allows for the resistance to subside. And when the resistance subsides, then everything that the universe anything that was coming to you is coming to you fast. And so yeah, it's like, it's really about embracing where you are. And what you were saying, bro, it's like, you can sit there and beat yourself up because you're not spiritual enough to beat your disease. But that's not the space. That's not the space.
It's like we were talking about earlier too with the flow, just being in the flow. It's like no resistance. It's like this has come here for a reason to teach me. Okay, I'm just going to accept it. And then it's like sometimes that is the medicine that helps shift it. At least it helps shift your perspective to being more resonant to maybe a solution too.
Because I go back to times when I was suffering with illness, and I go, that was, if I could have awoken to the blessing of that in the moment, I wouldn't have suffered so deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that's interesting, and one thing, especially from my perspective as like a Tai Chi instructor and the energy healer, it's to make sure we treat the physical, mental, and emotional body as one being.
Totally.
And that's something that, if I could criticize Western medicine, I will say is the one thing that I don't see most Western medicines doing.
Yet. I mean, some people do, but it's just not integrated into the culture of that yet at all, really. They ask me, I go to the doctor and they go, what are you doing? You're so healthy, like you're the healthiest guy ever, like what are you doing? And what I'm doing is just I'm living in my joy. I'm in resonance, and I choose positive thoughts, and I meditate, and I'm connected to my path, and it's like the things that keep our cells in resonance. Feeling good begets feeling good, and feeling good and feeling good and feeling good. And it's funny because they say that now. They go, well, what we found is actually people post-lung transplant who do good for a long time tend to do better. It's like such an interesting thing to say. The better you do, the better you do. And I'm like, yeah, I totally agree, but that's a metaphysical, energetic statement because it's positive momentum. The better you do, the more likely it is that you understand what it is that you need to do to keep you well, and therefore the positive momentum
symbiotic
carries upon itself.
And I think touching on it, going back to calling it Western medicine, I used to feel that way and think that way. But it's the Western mind. It relates to every aspect of Western society in general, and can be extrapolated into all the ways in which society is ill because it separates the spirit from self. And we're not treating a body. We're not treating a body. We're treating a large body of energy, which has many dimensions to it. And that's how you feel, that's what you do, that's the works you do on the planet, that's how connected you are to spirit and to nature. And so for me, it's like if you go back to all the primitive peoples of this place, you see why they didn't have these things. And so, it's a little bit of a return to those things. It's a return to nature. It's a return
they didn't have it because they didn't need it, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They didn't need it. You don't need a fix for a complex problem that you don't have.
I think, and this is personally, reading the book The Four Agreements.
Love the book.
Yes.
Big fans.
It definitely was, I want to say, eye-opening and life-changing for me, and kind of how so many of us believe that lie. So when you were talking earlier, Skip, about the kids that are here as light bringers and that kind of thing, it seems to me that one of the best things we as adults can do, whether we're parents or not, is to allow them to grow and flourish as their own selves and not try to put our, I'm going to say, misconception or lies on them.
Yeah.
Well, another primitive concept, another, I call it primitive because that's the term that we use, but it's not primitive at all. In fact, it's more advanced than we can imagine. They would view...
Ancient technology.
They would view the children as way closer to the spirit world. They're your ancestors. Mm-hmm. You should be listening to them. And I don't mean... You need to show them the ways of the world. You need to show them how to act and be and love and do and how to act properly and how to care. But they have wisdom that you can't imagine because you're too enmeshed in this world. And so, absolutely, I'd say that they come through with bigger gifts, and they're coming through so strong right now. The ones that are coming through are going to far surpass anything we're talking about. Right now, this is going to be common knowledge. Yeah. So common that, it's like looking back at the 60s. We can look back at those revolutionary times and go, well, that's all real basic to us now. Well, exponentially, it's going to be way more now. Way more. So those kids coming in are the teachers. They're the teachers. And so, I'd say let them do what they do and show them how to love themselves and take care of the planet and take care of themselves. That's the way to do it.
And hopefully as we, I'll call us adults, continue to awaken, hopefully, adults. Then hopefully we can, I want to say, get better at stepping out of our way to allow the children to truly be and do and express themselves so that we can learn from them.
Yep, totally. And the only way we can do that is just working on ourselves. And when you work on yourself, you become an example for everyone else in your sphere. And that's how it's like Gandhi said. Be the change you want to be.
And continue to raise those vibrations around you.
Yeah, just do the best we can. And it's simple.
One of my favorite songs, oddly enough.
Yeah. It's a good one.
I mean, that's the consequence and the what comes from loving yourself. That when you truly love who you are, where you are, what you bring, and you see yourself clearly as Source sees you, then you make those choices, and the world acts accordingly.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So nice. Yeah, it's easy. It takes all the stress off. It's like everything's much simpler than we make it with our human minds. We're here to grow. Sure, there's going to be challenge, but we're here also to experience and love each other and have fun. And it's like everything I'm doing, if I'm not having fun, if I'm not having a good time, I go, wait, what am I doing here? Is this important? Am I just making a big deal out of it? And the answer is always yes. If it's not the right thing, if it's not in alignment with our heart, in my heart, I don't do it. And so I'm getting better and better and refining my path of choosing what it is that feels in alignment, and I'm becoming much more sensitive to what's in alignment and getting better at it. Oh, yeah. And then more stuff is coming at me that's all in alignment. It just comes all in alignment now. It's all packaged up by the universe. Oh, hey, this is what you like. Here's some more. Here's some more,
Mm-hmm.
It's just staying focused on that, because it's really easy for us to focus on the ways that things are out of alignment. But it's always going to be slightly out of alignment because we're always going to be growing. We're always going to be refining our alignment, what we want. And so it's just getting comfortable in that little gap in between exactly where we want it and where we are. And when you're comfortable in that gap, you're not resisting it. It's just always getting better and better and better.
How long would you say that you have been living, or I want to say making a conscious effort to live in that alignment?
Well, it was around that time that we saw you bless the woods. That was the summer of 2018, I believe.
It was last year.
It was summer of 2019. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it was a year before that we got turned on to the work of Abraham Hicks. And before that, obviously, we were always works in progress and always on a spiritual path, but it was then it would really made sense to me, the mechanics of it. And it has transformed our lives.
It's made it easier to see. I think that, you and I have been doing this stuff for a long time, but new information constantly comes. So it's like,
it was just something we became more in resonance with, that came like a complete package of the understanding of the dynamics of it. And these are like empirical truths. You do this and this happens. And so at first you hear it and you go, okay, that makes sense. I want to try it. And then it happens exactly like it is described, and you go, okay, this you do this and then this happens. So it's like a science. It's just the science of energy. It's the way the universe acts. And when you become aware of it, you can't go back because you've seen it, because you're just you can pretend to be asleep, but you're still awake. Mm-hmm. You can sleep with one eye open, like pretend sleep if you want, but it's just, that was the part. So about 2 or 3 years now. 2 or 3 years.
Well, I have to say, you all sound and speak like you've been in that alignment for much